Hi all, welcome to Tech Forum. In this video, let us see what gated content is and how to enable gated content in Adobe Experience Manager. Gated content is any content that is hidden behind a lead capture form or authentication. To access the content, a user must provide personal information, usually in the form of email, phone number, job title, etc., or registering by providing the required basic information and authenticating to the system. Gates are highly valuable to marketers because they are powerful tools for lead generation. I am going to explain two different approaches to enable the gated content in AEM. The first one is closed user group CUG and the second one is content behind a lead form. The closed user group is a feature used to restrict access to content to a selected group of users on a published site. When you assign CUG to a page, that page requires a login and only CUG admitted users can access that page. Let us now enable the CUG. As a first step, create a user group. So let me go there, security, groups. So I have already created a user with the name Weekend Magazine Readers. So because I am going to enable the access for some of the magazines, so you can create your own group, whatever you want. Let us now enable the required permissions. Let me cancel this. Security permissions. I enable the required permissions. If you see, like I enable the read only permission, JCR read permission for content, weekend, USEN magazine. So I'm going to enable the access for all the content below this level, the magazine folder level. So whoever part of this group, they can access this content. Now define a sample user. So let me go and define that. Again, go to user. So I created already a user with the name test. Test user 1. Now if I go there, so I added this user to this weekend magazine readers, what are the group we earlier created. So once this is done, the user and groups and the required permissions are created, you go ahead and activate those user and groups. So you can just click on this and activate so that it will be available in publisher also. Same thing you do it for the group also. After this, let us enable the CUG for the required pages. So for that, what you do is again go back. Okay, maybe I will go to AEM start. Go to the corresponding page. Maybe I will go to weekend. Now US EN. I will go to magazine. Now I am going and enabling the CUG for this particular content. So for that, go to properties. Now if you go into the advanced, then if you go here, you can see something called authentication requirement. Just select on enable, because it is if it is already inheriting, then break that inheritance and say like it's enabled. Then you should be specifying the login page. So I am using the default. Even if you leave this as blank, the default login page will be used. But in real-time scenario, you can have a custom login page, or even you can use the external login pages. So now this is fine. Now just to go again to the permissions tab. So here if you see, you should be adding the edit closed user group. You can click on this. You can add whatever the groups you want. Then even you can like add additional permission. So you can click on this additional permission, select a group, and you can add it. Right now already I enabled through the group. It's having a read only access, the browse page. Even you can add additional permissions through this UI also for that particular CUG user. Okay, after this activate this page again, so that the page will be available in the publisher. Now the user should register like by providing the minimal details like email, first name or last name, and login to access the CUG enabled content. So whenever user access this page, he should be already registered. So obviously we are not showing that in this video, but user should be registered, and so he should be they should be logging in to access the page. So one thing is, like, whenever the user register, add the user to the corresponding user group. In my case, it's a weekend magazine readers, so that they will have the required access to the restricted content. So the content is accessible only by the users part of the CUG group. Okay, let me access the page now. Maybe this is the page I be enabled the CUG magazine. If I go, then yeah, this is the page. Let me copy this. I'm going to access this through the publisher. So localhost 4503, because in author anyhow it will access, it will request for the login for all the user. So I'm going to access it in the publisher. Now if I enter .html, so it will take me to the login page. So if I should be only login through that CUG enabled user, otherwise you will not able to access the content. Even though you can successfully log in, but the content will not be accessible only for the CUG enabled, that specific group, because we are enabled only for that group, the CUG, so they will be only able to access it. Now I am able to access the page. So I logged in through this user. So even if you are logging with other user and the user is not enabled for the CUG, so the page will not be accessible. So now if you access any other page, so maybe I will go into incognito window and access any other page, it will directly take you to the content. It won't ask any credential because CUG is not enabled for this pages. Let us now see how to enable the gated content through a lead form. The gated content is configured by enabling a lead form in front of the content. User should fill the lead form with minimum details to get access to the gated content. The content is accessible only by filling the lead form. Overall, the gated content follows this simple logic. While accessing the gated content, the user will be presented with a lead form if not already filled. Upon filling the form, the user will be redirected to the final gated content. If the user already filled the form, will be directly redirected to the final gated content. The lead form should be hidden from the search engine, so that no one can directly access the form. But in case they access the form directly, the user will be redirected to the default redirect page configured in the form upon filling the data. The implementation workflow is going to be like this. So we are going to define a sling filter that will check whether the content is gated and also whether the user already filled the form. If the user already filled the form, they will be rendered with the gated content. If not, they will be redirected to the form. Also, we are going to define a form processor. So when the user submit the form, it will add the cookie, so that the filter can identify whether the form is already filled and redirect the user to the actual gated content. So maybe like some other data validation also. If the user submits all the required data, then finally the user will be redirected to the gated content. Let us now see how to enable the gated content through lead form. As a first step, I modified the page component dialog to enable the gated access tab along with required detail. Let me go into maybe CRXT and so that, okay. Yeah, I defined a dialog, so additional tab, so to the page component. So if I go to tabs, then items, gated access, so it's having, okay, let me show you that. Yeah, so there is gated, there is a checkbox. User can select whether they need to gate the content, specific content. Then we should be configuring the form name also. The same name should be used while enabling the form. Also form endpoint. So this is the default endpoint. So let's say if anybody access the form directly, they will get redirected to this location after filling the data. Let me now show the page property after this dialog change. So let me go to that specific, because this is a different project. Gated content is the project. So let me go there. Start sites. Yeah, there is a project called gated content US. I'm going and editing this page. En properties. Yeah, if you see, there is a additional tab here, gated access. So you can enable the gated access for this page by selecting this checkbox, and also the form name, provide some unique form name. The same form name can be used while enabling the form. Then also the form location. So right now we are not enabled the form. So once enabled, so that corresponding form should be linked to this page. As a next step, create a Sling filter along with a service that will redirect the user to the configured form URL. So let me show that. Let me go to the Eclipse. So this is the filter, gated content filter under my project, gatedcontent.core. If you see here, there is some logic. So I have a service also. The service will identify whether this gated and the form is not filled already. If the form is not filled already and the content is gated, the filter will redirect the user to the gate, means the form. So if it is already filled, the content will be rendered. The actual gated content will be rendered to the user. This have some other logic for caching and all those things. If I go to the service, so what that service is doing is it's trying to identify, validate the gated content, whether the content is actually gated. So how it is checking is like whether the flag is checked, the checkbox is checked, and also there is a form endpoint configured, and we have the form name also. So then if it is a gated content, and then again we are checking whether the form already submitted. So for that we are using the cookie, browser cookie. We are trying to get the cookie with the same name, the form name. So the cookie is enabled by the form processor, that we can see it. So if the cookie is there, it means the user already submitted the form. So it's like it's the user can directly redirected to the or directed to the gated content. One another action is while redirecting the user to the form, the gated content path is added as a parameter that will be used by the form processor to redirect the user to the actual gated content after the form is successfully submitted. I am using the core form components to enable the gated form. Created a new action called gated redirect along with a custom service to support the gated form action. So if you are using the custom form handling, change the logic accordingly. The form handler should redirect the user to the actual gated content after receiving the form data. Also, like the form processor should be enabling a cookie based on the form name. Let me now show the custom form action to handle this gated content. So if I go to the foundation, then components, form actions, gated redirect. So I created a custom action. So redirect to gated URL or the configured URL. Now it's of type foundation components form action. Now I created a file with the name post.jsp. So if you go there, like I'm just invoking a Java form data processor. So let me show that data processor also. If I go to this data processor, yeah, so obviously like process the form data. I'm not processing right now. So the handler should process the form data. So once after processing the data, like maybe some basic validation, if the data is valid, so the cookie should be added. So we are creating a cookie with the same form name. That's what earlier I was discussing on that. The form name should be same, like while creating the form and also while enabling the gate for the content. So the cookie is enabled. Maybe you can change that cookie validity. By default, it is 365 days. For that period, the user will not ask to refill the form. Now once after that, the user will be redirected to the gated content URL based on the URL sent by the filter in the query parameter. So if you see here, this is the, let me go to the data processor again. This is the gated URL parameter, gated URL. This parameter is sent by the filter. Now if I go back, if I go to the get query string param. So we are getting the actual URL from the referrer header, including that query parameter. So then we are fetching that query parameter with the same name, the gated URL, and redirecting the user to that specific URL. So that is the actual gated content URL. Let us now enable the gate for a content, specific content. As a first step, create a lead form with required fields and configure the gated redirect action in the form container. So let's do that. Let us create a form with that new action, whatever we created. So if I go here, okay, gated content, created en. Yeah, I created a form with the name test form. Let me edit that. Yeah, this is a simple form. It's having first name and last name. Okay, let me edit this. Click on this and click on this form container. If you go to the edit, you can see here the action type. There are two default actions, mail and store content. We created a custom action, gated redirect. Select that. Now provide a form name. So I am keeping as test form. So the same form name should be configured while creating the gate also. Now the default redirect location, I am just keeping some default redirect. If somebody directly accesses form and fill the data, they will get redirected to this particular URL. Now this is fine, the form is ready. Let us now enable the gate. So for that, go to that any one of the page. I am going to this en, go to properties. Yeah, go to gated access tab, check the checkbox, then form name, same form name here, test form, then form location, select the form location, whatever the form we defined earlier. Now activate the gated content and the form, and also deploy the other changes, the filter and the form processor and custom form action to the publisher, so that we can test the real scenario. Let me now access the gated content. So copy this, maybe I will go to another window, localhost 3, then paste this /en.html. Yeah, if you see, I got redirected to the form, the test form. So here you can see that URL also, gated URL. Let me fill the form now, maybe some random data. So let me do submit. Yeah, now if you see, the user redirected to the actual gated content after filling the form. So if I do a kind of inspect here, go there and application, go to this, if you see there is a cookie with the name test form submitted. It's valid for maybe 365 days. If you again access the same page, so the user will be directly sent to the gated, the same content. Yeah. This time the user is not presented with the form, so directly displayed the gated content. The gated content helps the marketers to increase the lead generations. The above solution can be extended to enable the gate for assets also. I will be sharing the Git repository link in the description. Feel free to provide your comments. Thanks all for watching the video. See you in the next video.